There we go. We'll do that again. Hi there. Welcome to our introduction to iridology. My name is Judith Cobb. I am a master herbalist, a natural nutrition clinical practitioner, a certified iridologist, and a certified comprehensive iridology instructor. And my goal in life, my calling in life is to share with the world constitutional iridology and to help people see the benefits of using this both in their own wellness and in their holistic wellness practices. So great to have people joining us live on Instagram. Thank you for being there. We've got people live with us on the webinar, and we've got people joining us on Facebook as well. So this is awesome. I'd love it if you would just introduce yourself, just give us maybe where you're from, just so that we know who we've got here and that you're actually live and have a pulse this morning. You know, there are so many different kinds of iridology philosophies, and our focus today very specifically is the up-to-date, scientifically validated constitutional iridology. So I'm just going to invite you to stay with me to the very end. We'll be 45 or 50 minutes today and introducing iridology and some other great stuff that's coming up. So if you are planning on staying to the end, give me a 2 thumbs up somewhere so that I know you are going to stay. We've got some great stuff planned for today. So the first thing we need to answer is this. We need to answer the questions of what is iridology, what can it teach us, and how should it be used? If we don't have answers to those questions, then we're just shooting in the dark. We need to understand the answers to those questions, right? So important. So we're going to dive into those right now. And again, I'm just kind of watching my other computer, which is going to make this a bit easier and a little less challenging. Let me move this computer up here. That will be much better. Can see it a little bit easier. Perfect. Okay, awesome. So the first thing we need to know is that this is actually pronounced iridology, not iridology. Okay, so it's not iridology, it's iridology. So that's a long I at the beginning of the word, not a short I. So that's really an important thing to know, because, you know, we need to be uniform in this. We need to be able to talk to one another, and we need to present that unified front to the world, right? That we're all on the same page and that we know what we're doing. So iridology is the study of the iris, which is the colored part of the eye. Now, you may already know that, but you would be surprised how many bazillion people in the world don't know that. And if you're new to iridology, maybe you didn't know that that's exactly what it was either. So it is the study of the colored part of the eye, which is known as the iris. Modern iridologists often also have training in studying and understanding the background of the eye, which would be the sclera. It would be the white of the eye. And so when we understand that the iris is genetically or inherently predisposed, and the sclera is primarily dynamic, we begin to understand much more about the person we're working with, right? This is so important. Okay, I am just popping in to Facebook, and it says, okay, so Canel Cardamon, I just want you to remind you that we've got we've got 2 things happening right now. We are in the free webinar, and Canal is one of the graduates of my CNDI course. And so Canal, if you are wanting to get into the office hours, that doesn't start until noon. So hopefully you're hearing that. And I should just give her a quick message here, find the right mouse for the right computer. Okay, there we go. So here we are again, back to where we're supposed to be. My apologies for that interruption. So let's do a little bit of an analysis here, right? I promised you 3 analyses today. We're going to do one analysis for each of the 3 primary constitutional types in constitutional iridology. Now, I never, ever, 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 did I underscore that enough times? Never, ever do I actually do an absolute front to back, everything I see reading ever. And I especially don't do that on a first appointment. Okay. So again, for today's webinar, we're focusing on the iris. We're not going to do anything with the sclera. We're simply going to be working with the inherent predispositions. And so that's important to know. The eye again tells us, this eye in particular that you're looking at on your screen right now tells us, okay, perfect. Tells us that this person is predisposed to spending a lot of time reacting in the sympathetic nervous system mode. So fight, flight, or freeze. This person tends to always be ready for the very next crisis. And so what does that mean? That means if you've got someone who's always at the edge of waiting for the next bomb to go off, the next shoe to drop, the next car crash, the next whatever, the next crisis, this person burns through their B vitamins, vitamin C, calcium, magnesium very, very quickly. And their adrenal glands are probably just quivering because they're so busy all the time, right? This person, this eye also tells me that this person is predisposed to having her liver run the show. Now, if you understand what the liver does in the body, it does over 500 different jobs. It can mess up your hormones, it can mess up your blood lipids, it can mess up your immune system, it can mess up how well your body works with iron, it can, it can just mess up everything. And so when we understand that her liver specifically, it is predisposed to running the show, or as I often will say, ruining the show, we need to then ask those deeper questions about her immune system, her blood, her energy. Does she have any allergies? Because the liver plays into that. Hormonal issues, digestive issues, and that along with an understanding of what she came in wanting help with is what is going to help us understand what we need to work on. So this particular client came to me with recurring bladder infections and allergies. She is in her late 50s, and she just really needed help with these 2 things, bladder infections and allergies. So again, her eyes suggest that because her liver may not want to do all of its jobs properly, and that's a very constitutional side of the analysis here, that she would be at a greater risk probably for allergies and for immune issues, which of course, she complained of allergies and bladder infections. So giving her herbs to help fight the infection would be a Band-Aid remedy, right? Giving her herbs to help mitigate allergic symptoms would be a Band-Aid remedy. And I'm not saying we shouldn't do that. One of the things that helps our clients feel very heard is when we do that. When we say, I get it, you get a bladder infection every 3 weeks, whether you need one or not. We need to control that symptom. And while we're doing that, we also need to get to the root of the problem. So I want to use these herbs or this dietary approach with you in order to control the symptom. But please understand that's not what we're really after. We are really after digging to find what the root is so that we can actually end this for once and for all. And so with this particular client, because we see in her eyes that her liver wants to run her show, and we understand that liver can affect allergies and immune, we might want to consider potentially using something like golden seal with her. So this is a bitter herb that works well with getting the liver on track. It also has some impact on the immune system, some good impact with getting the right blood cells moving. And so that may also help to mitigate the infection and buy us some time to dig a little deeper. Okay, so it's really important to remember that as we're doing this with her, that constitutional iridology doesn't enable us to actually firmly diagnose, doesn't diagnose. And so that means we can't give this person a disease name. We can't say, oh, I see a bladder infection in your eyes. It doesn't work like that. That actually in this eye, there's nothing that suggests a bladder issue. She may not even be inherently predisposed to bladder problems, but she may have earned the right to having bladder problems through dietary or lifestyle, or I hate to say she's earned the right to have it because of emotional issues, but emotional issues can cause bladder problems. And if those emotional things are not dealt with, the bladder problems will persist. Okay, so when we are looking at these eyes and we are doing that analysis, she's biliary, she's got contraction furrows, she's got pigment, she's got all of these other things that are adding to her story. We need to understand, what does she actually want help with? And again, with her, it was allergies and bladder. When we understand that's what she wants help with, we come to the eyes, we do the analysis, and the eyes help us understand more of likely why she's having those issues. So that guides us in what questions to ask and what recommendations to make. So again, the sequence is client tells us what their issues are. This isn't a party game. It's not a crystal ball. I never look at an eye cold and just say, well, you've got this, this, and this, because that doesn't work. Just saying. Did that for about the first 10 years of my practice when I practiced another style of iridology, and it does not work. But to understand what the client wants, then to look at the eyes gives me an understanding of where I need to be asking questions and where those inherent predispositions likely are. Then I can take that and ask those questions that the eye is teaching me. And with the answers the client gives me, I can then do a better job of creating a program and a direction for this client. Let's look at a lymphatic iris. And seriously, that's all I would do for an iris analysis, right? I do not nitpick every little detail. Why? Because it's a waste of time and it overwhelms the client and it's not useful. You cannot work with all of the information that an eye has all at once. It doesn't work like that. Here's analysis number 2. This is a woman who, when we did these photos, she was in her mid-50s. And you will notice that her collarette is very, very tight, right? So this is the collarette, very tight. So this suggests a predisposition to constipation and poor energy production. However, we do have to ask the client questions. And the first thing we need to know is, what do you want help with? Because that is the single most important thing. Our client appointments are never about us and what we know and how well we can vomit that all over our client. It is always about our client, what they need help with, and which selective pieces of information we have that will be supportive to the client. Do you see the difference there? So important. So when I look at this eye, you know, and I'm thinking that I've known this client for many years. She studied with me for many years, and she came in when I got a new camera, and I said, I need people who will let me take pictures of their eyes. So she popped in and let me do that for her. So as I look at her eyes, if I didn't know anything about her, I would be focusing on that collarette. And things that I would think about was that she needs small meals, she needs lots of vegetables, she needs to keep the grains down, she needs good quality proteins, and she needs to make really good food choices overall. I would be thinking that she needed digestive aids as appropriate and things like that. And so when she came to see me, she was already on track because she'd studied with me for so long. And she was eating small meals. She was having lots of vegetables. She almost had no grain in her diet. She was using really good quality proteins, and she was making really good food choices overall. You know, we're all a little bit human and we all have treats once in a while. That's okay. I have no problem with my client being human as long as they understand how that little treat affects them. And they might have treats that they know are not great for them, but are not as harmful as some other treats, and that's great. So her eyes do suggest another predisposition, and that one is more to allergies, particularly allergies that will show up in her mucous membranes. So I asked her, and she said, yep, she'd been dealing with some seasonal springtime allergies, most especially. Now, she actually, in her symptoms, she has no gut symptoms at all. But she understands that there may be no obvious gut symptoms, but gut is always related to allergies. So if her allergies are sneezing and sinusy things and drippy nose and whatever, she understands that that all goes back to gut, that all goes back to systemic inflammation. It all goes back to the liver, and the liver not dealing with phase 1 and phase 2 detox properly. And so again, we needed to decide what to do here, because she was already really on the right track. For her, the very best option, because it's just like 4 weeks out of the year, she doesn't have any symptoms any other time, and her diet is really clean. The very best option was simply to suggest that she add a mucilaginous herbal formula to her program. So something with lots of slippery elm, maybe some fenugreek, things like that, to help deal with those sinuses when the spring allergies hit. I would also now, you know, and I'm constantly learning as well, right? Constantly learning, always studying, always wanting to know more, always wanting to understand more. And so since I did these photos with her 2.5 years ago, I would actually consider adding some N-acetylcysteine to her program at this stage. And maybe a little bit of milk thistle to deal with phase 1 and phase 2 liver detox. That might mitigate the allergies completely, and might eliminate the need for the mucilaginous herbs, right? And I think it's really fair for us to be open with our clients and let them know that we are always learning. Our clients want us to know everything, but I don't think that's really possible. You know, that's just my opinion. Do you agree with me that it's not possible for us to know absolutely everything, but that we should know a lot and we should always be learning? And I get excited when a client comes in and I've just learned something that is so all about them, because it's like, this is so awesome because I just learned this. I know what to do with this, and that gets very exciting. Okay, I'll calm down. This is our third assessment that we are going to do. This is a woman in her mid-50s. My clientele is primarily female. Many of them are premenopausal and up, although I do a lot of work with infertility and high-risk pregnancy as well. She's in her mid-50s. She's suffering with hot flashes, and she really has her diet figured out quite well. She has a very holistic lifestyle. As a matter of fact, she probably eats better than I do, and I would just love to go to her house for every meal. Right, as we watch through what her diet is like, it's like, oh my goodness, I could learn a thing or two from you. Share your good recipes with me, right? And so that is great. But the one thing that is out of balance for her is that she is suffering with lots of hot flashes. Now, her eyes, again, are guiding me, taking me into very different directions, but it seems like different, but they meet up again, just like we always see. Everything in the body is totally connected, and we just have to understand the pathways, right? And so, first thing I asked her about, since I knew hot flashes were the issue, how's her nervous system? Now, she is a social worker by trade, and so she understands a lot about how the endocrine system and how the nervous system works. So I could speak to her in more professional terms rather than necessarily having to simplify language, which makes it just a whole lot easier. Although I'm very happy to figure out what level my clients are at and work with them right there, because that's where they need me to be, right? Same with you. That's where your clients need you to be. First thing I asked her about was her nervous system. She has contraction furrows. And I asked her about her adrenals, her sympathetic nervous system response. So things like, how do you sleep? How do you regenerate? How do you handle stress? Or do you have any other symptoms that get worse with stress? And for her, yes, it's the hot flashes. So when she's stressed, when she's not getting enough rest, when she's feeling like she's coming up short at work or somewhere else, the hot flashes get worse. She also has a couple of indicators that suggest the liver may be a bit of an issue. So I asked her, is there any problem digesting fats? So when she eats fats, does that make her feel nauseous? Does she ever see an oil slick in the toilet when she has a bowel movement? Does she have any anger issues? Does she hold onto a grudge? And she said no. The recommendation that I needed to give her, however, because her eyes say that her liver wants to be an issue. Her eyes say her adrenal glands run the risk of being deficient in some way, of being insufficient in their ability to handle this transition from having menstrual cycles to not having menstrual cycles, because the adrenals play a huge role in that, as does the liver. And so my recommendation to her was that she give up coffee for 10 days. And she did that. She saw a vast improvement. It was like, oh my goodness, this is night and day. So it's not my job to decide how a client needs to live. I asked her, what do you think? Would you rather, because she really loves her coffee, would you rather have the coffee and have the hot flashes and be reliant on synthetic hormones? Or outside hormones like bioidenticals, or would you rather not drink the coffee, not be abusing your liver, your thyroid, your stomach lining, and your adrenal glands, and depleting your B vitamins, and also not have hot flashes? And she said she'd rather keep the coffee. So, when a client says that, that's their decision. She's a grown-up. She's got the information. There may come a point in time when she decides that what she really wants, that it really would be more worth it to be hot flash free than to have her coffee. And so when she's ready, she'll go there. And if that never happens, that's okay. She's got the information. She's capable of making the decision. And the reason why the coffee is a huge thing is because it stresses the adrenal glands, right? Whether it's got caffeine or not, coffee depletes your B vitamins, your vitamin C, your calcium, your magnesium. It acidifies the body. It stresses the thyroid. It toughens the stomach lining, and it stresses the liver. And again, when it depletes your calcium, that's taking calcium out of your bones. And so there may come a point in time when she realizes that that's not where she wants to be. So how do we use iridology then? I've walked you through some some iris analyses as I would do them in a first appointment. And that is literally all I would do in a first appointment. I would find out what the client needs help with. Then I would look at their eyes. Then I would ask them tons of questions. And then we would put together a very, very short, very specific list of recommendations, 2 or 3 at most, and have them do that homework for about a month, 3 to 5 weeks, depending on the client and what we're working on. And then they come back, and then we reevaluate. Now, with constitutional iridology, we know the irides are not going to change because of what we've done with diet. And understanding that means that we don't need to be reshooting photos and looking at their eyes every time we see them. However, what I find is that when a client has one set of symptoms under control, another set of symptoms rises to the top. If you've had hot flashes and those hot flashes are gone, well, now the important thing is maybe it's the joints in your hand are starting to act wonky. So we go back to those iris photos. We again ask, what do you want help with? Well, now I need help with these joints that I think are maybe developing arthritis. We look at the photos, we see what information the photos can give us, ask the appropriate questions. and work from there. So every appointment literally follows the same process, but we are never spending hours in an iris. We are never spending hours dissecting it bit by bit. So we use iridology to guide our questions, to create rapport, and to inform our recommendations. So with that, registration for the upcoming course, Confident Nutritionist Dynamic Iridology, that is starting in January, is now open. Registration is open. And so would it be okay with you if I took a few minutes to share with you some of the details of that course? I'm hoping so. So Confident Nutritionist Dynamic Iridology. Yeah, I created this program because I was tired of spending my own time after I'd been with my client, unpaid time. Okay, so you're with the client for that hour, you're paid for that hour. Then I was going off and spending 2 or 3 or 4 hours creating a program for them, and then wanting to meet up with them again to deliver the program. And the time that I was not with the client was time that I was not getting paid for, because clients don't like to pay for time if you're not actually with them. Right? So here's how I actually came into Constitutional Iridology, which is what I teach in Confident Nutritionist Dynamic Iridology. I've been practicing one style of iridology for about the first 10 years of my business, and it just wasn't working. It always led me to sharing way more information than clients could possibly absorb in 1 hour. And it was frustrating because I was doing it the way I'd seen my teachers do it. I was just doing it the way I thought I was supposed to do it. But I was giving my clients so much homework that they couldn't even do the homework. So I always had to find new clients. And by this time, I was about 10 years into business. I had a young family. We had 4 kids that were under the age of 10 by then. And I was about ready to give up when I heard about Constitutional Iridology. That's when I started studying it. And as I studied it, I started figuring out ways that if I integrated Constitutional Iridology into my business, it would actually streamline my business. It would help me to be more effective in my time with my clients. It would get rid of my unpaid homework time, and my clients wouldn't get overwhelmed if I would just do it this way that was coming into my head. So it took me a couple of years to learn how to morph what I was learning into something that I could actually teach in my courses, or teach to other practitioners to help them have the practice they wanted, to help them stop doing unpaid overtime as well. So Confident Nutritionist Dynamic Iridology is a live, online, mentored course for nutritionists, herbalists, and naturopaths who want to streamline their clinical work without sacrificing client care. So they can stop working unpaid overtime to develop client programs, so they can stop overwhelming their clients with undual programs, so they can create programs that will increase client compliance and client success and long-term retention. Oh yeah. Since I figured this out, I've got a good handful of clients that have now been with me for 25 to 30 years. I've been in this industry for 40 years now, and I have in my files, like I said, a good number of clients who've been with me for 25 to 30 to 35 years. We are now working on 2nd and 3rd generations of family. That's how well we've retained them. So the goal of this course, Confident Nutritionist Dynamic Iridology, is to teach you Constitutional Iridology, but not just how to teach you iridology, but to teach you how to use it confidently. So you can easily integrate it with what you already know about nutrition and or herbology to confidently create your client programs in your client sessions. More importantly, client programs that your clients can actually stick with. So let's, again, let's do another quick little constitutional analysis here. All right. Quick little analysis. This is a female client in her mid-30s. She has fertility issues. She's been trying to get pregnant for the last couple of years. She did conceive once, and then she miscarried. So when I look at her eyes, I'm specifically looking at layers in her eyes, because the eye is made up of layers of fibers that we call trabeculae. And as I look at this, and I look specifically at her collarette, which is this thing coming around here, I see that this is laid right on top of the iris. Doesn't always look like that in everybody. Now, her eyes specifically suggest to me that there may be a personal or family history of the MTHFR defect. Do you know what that is? If you know what MTHFR is, raise your hand or give me a thumbs up or something like that. Let me know that you know what that is. Okay. All right. So what MTHFR is it's an issue with the liver, where the liver cannot take B vitamins and methylate them properly. In order for a woman to be fully fertile, one of the requirements is she has to be able to methylate her Bs, or she has to have methylated Bs in her system. If the Bs are not properly methylated, her fertility tanks, just the way it is. And so her seeing these indicators in her eyes, and also seeing that she also has contraction furrows, you can see those over here, suggests that there might be some compromises in fertility. Now, what I'm doing with this is I'm triangulating. I'm using several different markers to inform the story and distill down what we need to be working with, right? We'll notice also that there's a slight cloudiness over the edge of her eye out here, where the brown isn't quite as bold. And this suggests a personal history of liver enzyme deficiencies and carbohydrate metabolism. So I asked her about her carb cravings, and she said yes. And so we had to work on cleaning that up. Really important that we know that we don't need to talk about every marker we see, because every single marker does not inform what we're working on at the moment. Now, the other thing is, in my brain, I'm going check, 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 right? I'm looking for all the markers that will correlate, but I'm not going to bog my client down with all of that. I'm going to focus on one or two key markers that give us the most information about the situation, that help us to understand what her body is capable of, what her inherent potentials are. I'm going to focus on that. If we go down the list and talk about every single marker, number one, you can never do that in a 1 hour appointment. You'll run out of time. Number two, your client leaves feeling hopeless. Now, as holistic practitioners, hopelessness is not the feeling we want our clients to have. We want them to feel empowered and hopeful. So we focus on key markers that are relevant to their situation. We teach them about those markers at a level that makes sense to the client, and we give them 1 or 2, maybe 3 at max, key pieces of homework, very specific, precise pieces of homework to work on, to work with, to begin turning things around. So I don't need to ask about every marker, because there are lots in this set of eyes, but I only need to focus on those relevant markers, right? And that is the complete sum total of the iris analysis I would do with this client in an appointment. I do not want to bog her down. So taking that information, this is how the course Confident Nutritionist Dynamic Iridology works. It is delivered as 20 live 2-hour-long webinars. It contains all of the curriculum you need to prepare for the IPA certification exam if you want to be certified. These classes are, because they're live, they're interactive, and I keep my classes small to ensure that you have get the individual time you need and can ask any questions that you want to ask and get answers to them. There is a ton of information and support materials that we have digitally available to you in the course as well. So here's what we cover. When we look at everything that's covered in these 20 lessons, lesson 1 is an introduction, history, eye anatomy, basic foundational stuff that you need to know in order for us to actually go big with this class. Lessons 2 through 5, we talk about everything to do with color, pigments and so spots of color, overall color, how the colors interplay, what they mean, what kind of questions you would need to ask when you see these colors and all that in the eyes. Lessons 6 through 8, we talk about the fiber structure. So as we looked at that last set of eyes, you noticed there were different lines and different shapes in the eyes. Those are fiber structures. When we understand that, it gives us more information to inform the questions we need to ask. Lessons 9 through 16 is zones. Now zones, that's a really nebulous term, isn't it? When we break the eye down into concentric rings, each of those concentric rings, and there are 7 of them, relates to something specific in the body, whether it's digestion, nutrient assimilation, nutrient transportation, how the muscles and organs use the nutrients, how the bones use the nutrients, how the surface circulation and lymphatics are, what the skin does. And when we understand those zones and overlay that information on top of markers, as in fiber variations and lacunae, and on top of colors, we get even more information, and it helps us to laser in on what is important for this client. In the context of the course, you learn what all of this means so that your brain just starts going on autopilot, and in your brain you're going to find all these little neural things happening where everything starts to connect, and you begin to just know what you're looking at. Lesson 17, we talk about how eyes change. This is important because eyes do change. They don't change the way people on social media talk about, because those people sadly are using very outdated, disproved iridology. Lessons 18 and 19, we actually do study the white of the eye, or the sclera. The iris is inherently predisposed. Your client has done nothing to put those markers into the iris. That's how they were born. And we'll talk about how that does change under the influence of the genetic predispositions. The sclera, however, is very dynamic. This is what the person has earned for themselves. It shows us what is brewing in the body, what's going on in the body. And that's exciting because when we put what's happening with the inherent predisposition, we understand at a deeper level how to work with what's happening right now. Make sense? Lesson 20 is our wrap up, what you need to know to prepare for certification if you so choose, what comes next. Now, I know that a lot of the things that I've mentioned here in the what's covered might not make sense to you yet, but that's okay. That's okay, because by the time you're finished the course, all of those big words, all of those unusual words, that new vocabulary will be rolling off your tongue like a well-seasoned pro. You're going to have the confidence you need. You know, this course is so jam-packed with learning and value that my students can't believe how much they've learned already, even when they are only at the halfway mark. So again, 20 live webinars. The value of this class is $23.95 Canadian. We're going to talk about what that means in just a moment. So I want you to consider for a moment, because I know you're going to do this. I know you're going to go online and you're going to search out iridology courses. If you want to compare apples to apples, sort of, at least look for an IPA certified instructor. Okay, so you're going to pretend you found an IPA certified instructor there, and there are lots of them. You're going to look at their course, and they're going to say their tuition is anything from $750 to $1,500, right? Fair enough. US dollars. Those are US dollars. These are Canadian dollars. We'll talk about that difference in a minute. I want you to think for a moment, what is that course really going to cost you? Because those courses are live face-to-face classes. They're typically 5 to 6 days long. So if you are going to take a course where you have to travel to it, you've got your travel expenses, hotel, airfare, ground transportation once you get there for a week, meals while you're there. It's never as inexpensive to eat on the road as it is to eat at home. You might have childcare or pet care or elder care as well. And you're taking a full week off work. You haven't even paid your tuition yet. How is that going to add up? Yeah. You know, without tuition, minimum 2,000 US expenses, minimum. The other thing that a lot of my students have found is that when they, regardless of what the class is, and I found this too, if I go to an intensive where it's 3 or 4 or 5 days, by the end of day 2, my head is mush. My brain doesn't work anymore. I feel like I put a hand blender in there and nothing's connected. The beauty of this is it's 2 hours once a week. You learn information, you practice it, you study it, you come back the next week, we do a review, we build on that information, we make sure you're rock solid. So people who take this course often ask things, can I really learn to do iridology in 40 hours? Well, yeah, you can. And you will be more confident. You will be good. You will be good. You will have an intermediate level of knowledge, which again will prepare you for certification if you so choose. And so, yeah, you can. You will need to practice and you will need to study. Some people say, I've got absolutely no background in iridology. Will I be able to do this course successfully? Oh, yeah. Probably 50% of my students have no background in iridology at all. What if I've already taken classes in iridology and I'm not using what I've learned? How is this course different? Most of those courses don't teach you how to integrate what you're learning. And I really spend a lot of time on teaching you how to integrate your nutrition and your herbology. And sometimes we dabble in flower essences and sometimes we pull in a bit of aromatherapy, things like that. Because if you aren't taught how to integrate it, this is going to be just another thing you've learned that you're not going to use. And I refuse to let that happen. Let's take a look at what some of my students have already said. This is the lovely Sharon Binrose. She's a naturopath from Australia. And she says, I'd already taken iridology as a part of my studies as a naturopath. Judith's course surpassed my previous training in structure, content, delivery, documentation, and support. Iridology, without a doubt, has been a huge game changer to my practice. It has reduced the time required for prioritizing a treatment plan. She no longer is spending 2 or 3 or 4 hours unpaid outside of her client time creating client protocols. She does it right in her session. That's fabulous. Helen Burnock had just finished her program and I was congratulating her on that, and she came back. She came in with no iridology training prior to the course, and she said, what a great educational experience. Thank you, Judith. Love it. The lovely Michelle Davies, and my students are all wonderful. I attract the nicest people. If you're a nice person, please feel free to apply to join the class. Michelle came to me with 3 certificates from Dr. Pesic and 1 from Darko Purse, all in iridology already, plus a million other certifications. But she said that my course most importantly taught her how to put it all together to make a proper assessment. I feel confident in my nutritional practice now. Love that. Love that. Stephanie Morgan came to me with no iridology background. She had tried to teach herself iridology from YouTube videos and books, and she told her husband, this is beyond me. I'm not getting this at all. Now, Stephanie has a master's in education. Keep that in mind. I was doing internet searches and kept hearing conflicting things. I kept searching on the internet, and I stumbled across your YouTube channel and thought, oh my, this person knows how to teach. That was my introduction to a very reasonable approach, one that resonated with me. And you can certainly find Stephanie on my YouTube channel, Judith Cobb, because she recorded a beautiful video testimonial as well, where she talks all about the objections she had and how this course was way more than she thought it would ever be, which is lovely. The beautiful Karen Choate said this: iridology has helped me to understand the relationship between different organs and organ systems more in depth. Iridology also gives me the advantage of seeing the potential for different genetic traits and qualities that may be underlying. By observing the Constitution, for example, you can extrapolate how the person's body will likely respond to applications of healing methods. Therefore, it has helped me to expand my knowledge and increased my efficiency at providing more precise recommendations for health-oriented options. Love that. So she also came in with no previous training. What else do you get in this course? You get videos of every class. We record every class, and that is a value of $23.95. You get topic recordings for every lesson. So every lesson covers many topics broken down into little bits. So maybe you've missed a class, you can go back and listen to the whole class. Maybe you didn't miss a class, but there's a concept that's just not sticking. That's when you go back to the topic recordings. So rather than listening to 2 hours, you listen to 10 or 15 minutes and you've got it under your belt. Right? Those are all added value in your program, and each of them is worth $23.95. So the value of this program really is $7,185 Canadian. This course includes an amazing amount of mentoring as well, both during the course and after you finish it. We're going to talk about that in a minute. So if this program actually helped you eliminate your unpaid overtime to easily get your client programs created right in your paid sessions without missing time with loved ones or making it possible for you to see more clients or have a life, would that be worth it? Well, this program really is worth $7,185 because of the amount of support you get. But you know, when I was learning that, and even now, I think twice about doing a class where the tuition is $71.85. And so I think I've come up with a really great compromise here. The actual investment is $23.95 Canadian, or 5 monthly payments of $529 Canadian. So here's our course times. It starts Wednesday, January 15th, 4 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Mountain, 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Eastern, midnight in London, 11 a.m. the next day if you are Australian Eastern Daylight Time. And so, you know, for those of you who are in England or the UK, not to worry because everything is recorded, right? So if you happen to be having a rough night of sleep, you can join us live. We'd love that. But if you value your sleep, then do the recordings. However, Christmas is coming, right? Christmas is coming. And if you're willing to commit to this program right away, then I want to give you an early Christmas gift. And that early Christmas gift is this: $200 off. So only until Friday, December 20th, one payment of $21.95 Canadian or 5 payments of $4.89 Canadian. Now, what does that really mean? For those of you who are in the US, want you to understand that the Canadian dollar is worth less than the American dollar. So when this goes through your credit card portal, it's going to be about $1,700 US. You save about 30%-ish right off the top. If you're in Australia, that translates to $24.50. And if you're in Britain, it's about 1,300 British pounds sterling. Isn't that awesome? You save money right off the bat. Lovely. What else do you get? Most students or most teachers make you purchase your own textbook. Most of the textbooks out there are about $250 Canadian. And so I give you a digital downloadable textbook that I wrote. You can print it up if you want. It's included as my gift to you. Digital downloadable iris map. Again, most iridology instructors make you purchase their iridology map. I've developed one. It is my gift to you as a bonus, and it is worth $25. Cheat sheets. I've taken the entire curriculum, condensed it down to about 45 pages of charts. Everything is fully indexed, and so super easy to use. You can download this and print this up. I know of no other instructor who has created cheat sheets for their students. The private Facebook group and the office hours calls. These are worth probably more than $10,000 a piece, because this is where you get the extra mentoring both during and after your coursework. No one is ever kicked out of the Facebook group or the office hours calls that has been in the program. We record the office hours calls so that if you want to go back and review any that we've done for the past 18 months, you can do that. We have IPA Exam 1 mentoring and IPA Exam 2 mentoring. Most instructors charge extra for this. I'm not going to go into full detail, but I will tell you that the Exam 1 mentoring ends up being about 10 hours of my time invested on your behalf, and in order to prepare you for certification. The IPA 2 exam mentoring is about 2 hours of my time invested on your behalf in order to prepare you. Total value of the bonuses alone, nearly $29,000. When we add the tuition for the course, the total value is over $31,000. So if this program really could help you streamline what you do in your business, get your programs created right in your client sessions, if it could actually help you create programs that would make your clients want to keep coming back, that would help them be more successful, would it be worth it? If it gave you more free time to see more clients, have a life, take up a hobby, do something else, volunteer somewhere, would it be worth it? The lovely Laura Orbietto, there she is, yeah, says, I highly recommend this course. When she wrote this, she was still studying herbology and nutrition, and she found that Competent Nutritionist Dynamic Iridology helped her integrate everything she was learning. I feel so blessed to have found this course. So one more time, the five payments, of $489 Canadian, or one payment of $21.95, available to you until Friday, December 20th at 9 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. As a bonus, when you register right away, you will also get early access to the Competent Nutritionist Dynamic Iridology Facebook page and the office hours calls and recording. So some questions: is this correspondence or self-learning or self-paced? Absolutely not. Fully taught, fully mentored. Nothing is do-it-yourself here at all. How long will it take you to do the course? Well, of course, a minimum of 40 hours to attend the classes, but then I do suggest 2 to 3 hours per week for study and practice. How much time do you need to set aside per week? Again, about 5 hours a week, 2 hours for the course, 2 to 3 hours for practice. I'm going out of town. Will I fall far behind? And the answer for that is, oh my goodness, don't need that. The answer is no. It's all digital. Catch up as soon as you can. How do I know if this course is right for me? If you're a nutritionist, herbalist, or naturopath, and you are looking for a proven way to quickly and easily assess your client's needs, then this course is for you. When will I know enough to start practicing what I use? By the end of the second lesson, you better be starting to practice those constitutions. You need that as a strong foundation to go on to lesson 3. What else do I need to buy for this course? I always recommend that my students start with, I do not know why all these are popping up, start with a 5 to 10 power magnifying glass, a pen light, and a lighted magnifier. And about a week before the class, I typically post a list on our Facebook page of good examples from Amazon. And so it shows you what you could buy, and you can buy them wherever it's convenient for you. No more than $75 Canadian worth, though. If I don't like it, can I get a refund? No, we don't give refunds. This is a certification course for professionals. You have access for the lifetime of the program. So and you have support for the lifetime of the program, which means as long as I am teaching iridology, you will have support. And what comes next? Well, because you've had the lowdown, go to www.iridology.education/priority1. Choose the payment option that works for you. After paying, you're going to receive a series of 3 emails. The first one is just a general welcome email. The second one has a link to an enrollment contract. Complete the contract and submit it back to me. Within 1 business day of me receiving that contract back from you, I will complete your registration and send you a 3rd email. This one will have your logon information for our Zoom classes, for your student sites, and for the Facebook group. So watch for those 3 different emails. And we are not actually doing that. So if you are feeling a little anxious or jittery or scared, that's how you should feel, because this is a great decision. When you decide to do something that's fabulous and big, often we feel a little bit nervous. So just to watch for that again. And yeah, I look forward to having you in class. iridology.education/priority1. Thank you so much for being with me today. I appreciate that you've been here and that you've stayed to the end, and I look forward to having you in class. Bye for now.